Good morning, Rand.
Good morning. The hearing will come to order. Today, the committee meets to consider two nominations. John Walk is nominated to be Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Mr. Walk currently works as a senior advisor to the Secretary of Agriculture and previously served in various roles within the executive branch over the last 20 years. Thomas March Bell is nominated to be Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Mr. Bell currently serves as General Counsel and Senior Investigative Counsel on the House Committee on Administration. He previously served in various roles at the Department of Justice, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. The witnesses' written statements have been submitted for the record. In the interest of time, I will forego opening remarks. Senator Peters.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to our nominees, and congratulations on your nominations. Good to see that you have your family here with you as well. I think it is important for this committee to hear from and question nominees at public hearings, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to do that today. However, I'm disappointed that we have had almost no opportunity to conduct public oversight of this administration and its top officials after they have been confirmed. Mr. Chairman, since the beginning of this year, you have held just one hearing where an administration official testified, and that was more than 6 months ago. Just to put in perspective, when I was chairman, during the Biden administration, we had 10 hearings with administration officials at this point in that first year. 1 versus 10. Year's not over. We could catch up and get to the 10, but that's a pretty slim agenda. You've only held also one legislative markup this year. This committee has wide-ranging legislative and oversight responsibilities. There are several bills that members on both sides of the aisle want to debate in advance, and there are numerous oversight issues administration officials need to answer for. Chairman Paul, I hope you will call on the leaders of DHS, the FBI, and the National Counterterrorism Center to testify before this committee before the end of the year. This committee's annual threats hearing provides a critical opportunity for the American people to hear from our national security leaders about wide-ranging threats that are currently facing our nation. Now turning to our nominees. This year, the administration has launched an unprecedented attack on the independence of inspector generals. These are nonpartisan watchdogs responsible for combating waste, fraud, and abuse across the government. Since taking office, President Trump has fired 19 inspectors general, and not once did he provide the legally required notification or explanation to Congress. President Trump has also attacked acting IGs. Just 2 weeks ago, he fired the acting IG for the Federal Housing Finance Agency in an apparent act of retaliation. As the administration continues to undermine independent oversight bodies, it's more important now than ever that we have qualified, nonpartisan individuals to serve in these roles. Thomas March Bell has been nominated to serve as the IG of the Department of Health and Human Services. If confirmed, Mr. Bell will be tasked with overseeing one of the largest departments, including $2.3 trillion budget and over 100 programs. Given Mr. Bell's highly partisan track record, I'm concerned that he will instead use the IG's office to pursue political aims, attacking women's reproductive rights, for example. So what does the record show? Mr. Bell led a partisan investigation into an alleged sale of fetal tissue for profit, a claim that has already been thoroughly investigated and thoroughly debunked. He served as the Chief of Staff of the Office of Civil Rights at HHS in the first Trump administration, where he limited women's access to reproductive care. Mr. Bell is anything but a nonpartisan. Currently, he's investigating a Democratic fundraising platform, even though its Republican counterpart faces the exact same issues. He's only focusing on the Democratic platform. He's plays politics with every oversight role that he has had. Mr. Bell is not unique. I'm also concerned about the independence of President Trump's nominee for IG to the Department of Agriculture. John Walk is currently serving as Senior Advisor to the Secretary of Agriculture and as the Acting Director of the Office of Tribal Relations. He also serves as the Acting Deputy Undersecretary for Food, Nutrition, and Consumer Services. How can we trust that the Secretary's right-hand man will provide independent oversight of the very policies and the very programs that he has implemented? I think the answer is clear. We can't. And I'm concerned that instead of acting impartially, Mr. Walk will cater to the administration. Still, I thank the nominees for being here today, and I look forward to asking and hearing from you questions that are posed.
It is the practice of the committee to swear in witnesses. Will the nominees please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you will give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Thank you. It's the standard practice of this committee for the chairman to ask nominees the following question. Do you agree without reservation to comply with any request or summons to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of Congress if you're confirmed? Mr. Walk?
I do.
Mr. Bell?
I do.
At this time, we will proceed to questions, and I'm going to defer my questions now and go to Senator Ernst.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate our witnesses being here as well. So, Mr. Bell, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. In fiscal year 2024, Medicare and Medicaid combined to account for more than 20% of all federal spending. This means that the HHS Inspector General, who oversees those programs, has a massive responsibility to ensure federal dollars are used appropriately and consistent with congressional intent. So there's a lot of room for improvement at HHS on this, Mr. Bell, and I hope that you will be able to focus your office's resources on these programs if confirmed. The HHS IG has 1,188 open recommendations. That's a lot. I encourage you to take the lead, if confirmed, as the HHS IG to get those resolved. Now, there are a few that caught my attention. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services had not recovered more than $1 billion in Medicaid overpayments identified by OIG audits. Medicare could have saved up to $128 million over 5 years if CMS had implemented control to address duplicate payments for services. So, Mr. Bell, there are many changes overdue at HHS to lower costs and improve access to care for Iowans and all Americans. But if confirmed, would you commit to addressing existing recommendations to reduce and hopefully eliminate overpayments and duplicative payments? Thank you. That's an easy one. Mr. Bell, as HHS IG, you will be responsible for oversight of the National Institutes of Health, NIH. NIH conducts and supports significant groundbreaking research to help Americans healthier. But it also conducts and supports research that has no business getting taxpayer support. This includes studies answering critical questions such as, are pampered cats less likely to poop outside the litter box? Do pigeons gamble? Does this sour cream and onion flavored potato chip look like Elvis? All of these studies are required to provide a public price tag for taxpayers by the Stevens Amendment, but none of them do. In fact, a 2019 GAO report I requested found that none of HHS's operating divisions could demonstrate that they had a process to manage and administer grantees' compliance with the Stevens Amendment. I'm sorry, we spent taxpayer dollars on this. It might look like Elvis, but did we have to spend taxpayer dollars on this? So, from your previous time at HHS, are you aware of other laws that HHS and or those who receive grants or funding from HHS that have blatantly disregarded what you would like to highlight for this committee?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I did see a number of grants and proposals and guidance directions during the first Trump administration that were obnoxious to congressionally passed statutes. Some are just the unfortunate largesse of a bureaucracy with a lot of other people's money to spend and the ability to, in an unaccountable way, to spend that money outside the brackets of congressional law.
Yes, well, thank you. And I think that we need to really pay attention. I've spent a lot of my last 11 years focusing on waste, fraud, and abuse within our federal government. And these are a few of the egregious examples of the misuse of taxpayer dollars. We need better oversight. We need compliance with the laws that are already in existence. So my message today is I don't think anybody agrees we should be spending money on a potato chip. I don't believe that. And I'm sorry, the litter box thing, let some private company pay for that if they're focused on kitty litter, whatever it might be. But let's not spend taxpayer dollars on garbage like this. So I appreciate that. We have additional questions. I'll submit those for the record. But I really want to thank you. Let's make sure we're focused on effective ways that we can use our taxpayer dollars for the right and intended use.
Gladly.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Peters.
Mr. Chairman, I defer my questions and recognize Senator Hessen.
Thank you so much, Ranking Member Peters, and Mr. Chair, thank you as well for this hearing. To our witnesses, congratulations on your nominations, and to your families as well. I want to start with a question to Mr. Walk. It's a simple, straightforward question that I already asked Mr. Bell at a previous hearing, so I just want you to answer this one, Mr. Walk. If directed by the President to take action that would break the law, would you follow the law or follow the President's directive?
Senator, I appreciate that question. Regardless of who were to ask otherwise, I will faithfully abide by the United States Constitution and the laws established thereunder.
I appreciate that. To both of you, shortly after taking office, President Trump illegally fired 17 inspectors general, including the inspectors general for the Departments of Health and Human Service and Agriculture, the same inspectors general that you are now nominated to replace. In doing so, the president not only broke the law, but he also purposely removed the people charged with preventing fraud, waste, and abuse in our government. So to each of you, and we'll start with you, Mr. Walk, do you support the president's firing of the inspector general who held the position for which you are now nominated?
Senator, the president is entitled to remove inspector generals. I would just add that our former inspector general is a plaintiff in a lawsuit naming USDA as a defendant. As an employee of USDA, I wouldn't be able to answer that.
Well, I'm going to go to Mr. Bell for a minute, and then I want to follow up with both of you. Mr. Bell, do you support the firing of your predecessor, which, by the way, to both of you, a judge has said clearly broke the plain language of the law?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I wasn't a part of the legal analysis for that decision made by the president, head of the executive branch. I don't know what justification the lawyers provided, but I support the right of the head of the executive branch to remove any employee.
Well, let's be clear that a federal judge looking at the plain language of the statute, which says that the president had to give Congress, I think it's 30 days notice and a reason, and the president didn't do that. So the president broke the law, and I'd like to remind both of you that if confirmed, you'll be taking an oath to uphold the law, and you'll be tasked with being a watchdog over others. Senator Ernst just made the point that we need people to comply with the written laws that Congress writes. So you'll be tasked with being a watchdog over others. So do you support the president breaking the law and illegally firing your predecessors? Yes or no, Mr. Walk?
Senator, again, that matter is in pending litigation, and I can't answer as a
Mr.
government
Bell?
of the.
Senator, I don't have I'm not a constitutional separation of powers expert.
I'm going to go on because I don't have a lot of time, and I still have another couple of questions. But let's just be very clear. There are statutes written in the law. The language is quite plain here. You can read them, and you can decide whether you're going to comply with them or not. To each of you, will you commit to continuing any open investigations that were initiated by your predecessor or by your agency's current acting inspector general? Mr. Walk?
Senator, I cannot make the commitment right now just because I don't know what those investigations are, but I would make those kinds of decisions on the merits
And
alone.
Mr. Bell?
Senator, I can't commit. I looked at the 223 open investigations on the website of Health and Human Services, and many of them looked interesting. I will commit, if confirmed, to take a close look at all of them and review them on their merits.
You can understand how concerned we are that the President of the United States broke the terms of the statute, fired independent inspectors general, and are replacing them with two people who have partisan backgrounds and who are not committing to either following the law or keeping the investigations that nonpartisans had started. So, Mr. Bell, another question for you. When you testified before the Finance Committee, I asked you about the HHS Office of the Inspector General's ongoing investigation into for-profit methadone clinics. As I previously shared with you, the HHS Office of the Inspector General has found that for-profit methadone clinics are billing Medicare for health care services that patients never received. According to a recent Inspector General report, this scheme is costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, and patients who need addiction treatment are not getting the care that they were promised. I asked you this question previously. You didn't respond directly, so I'm going to ask you again. As HHS Inspector General, will you continue to investigate whether opioid treatment programs are fraudulently billing the federal government for care that they never provided to patients? Yes or no?
Senator, you and I discussed that in our private meeting, and I told you then, and I'll tell you now, I'm committed to eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in those programs. I'd be glad to sit down with you.
So yes or no, will you continue that investigation?
I will continue to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm not familiar with the details of that investigation, but I will become familiar with them and would be happy to sit down with you and advance that cause as appropriate.
Senator Moody.
And that is incredible. Make sure that our monies that need to go to people who need help and are addicted in the middle of a health crisis, that the monies are going to them and not to fraud. So I appreciate that topic being brought up, and I appreciate your commitment to looking into that. So important. Appreciate Mr. Walk, Mr. Bell, you being here today. I see that you've brought your family members. Thank you for being here to support them. These hearings are sometimes tough, and it's nice to know they have loved ones at their back. So thank you for being here and supporting them in their public service. So important. I want to address my questions specifically to Mr. Bell. I have had some personal connection to many of the issues that you will be involved in once you are confirmed. The position that you have, well, that both of you are undertaking, the position of IG is perhaps one of the most important roles in an agency. The trust the American people put in you to remain impartial, independent, apolitical over an organization's staff, it's an awesome responsibility. And I believe that you have the influence, the ability, and certainly the opportunity to restore trust in our government. And that is so important right now. So I think these positions are some of the most important nominations right now in our history. So thank you for being here today. One of the things that I am particularly concerned with is what has happened to unaccompanied alien children during the last administration. And as you know, you may have read, I was very involved in taking the last administration to task. I thought in many ways they were not only facilitating, but acting as intermediaries of trafficking organizations, putting the American government in that position when these children were smuggled over the border. And at the end of the day, however they got here, whatever means that they were smuggled across the border, they're children. And the last administration, the Biden administration, put them with sponsors, dozens of children with the same sponsors, dumped them into unspeakable situations. In our investigation, we did a grand jury investigation in Florida. They lost track of tens of thousands of children. They were placed in situations that the grand jury said it was unspeakable. Some were sent to strip clubs, dropped off in vacant lots. They were subject to abuse, put with people they didn't even know. I could go on and on in terms of the findings of a grand jury, and just for the American public to understand, a grand jury is not a partisan organization. It's made up of people that are brought in from the community of all political affiliations, all walks of life. And that is what they found, that the Biden administration had put children into these situations, and they were just subjected to horrific, horrific abuse. So as Florida's Attorney General, I fought constantly in court to stop not only the intentional destruction of our border, but what was happening to our kids as a result. And I know, Mr. Bell, you have a history. You worked at DOJ and the Human Trafficking Bureau as chief counsel for the Select Panel on Infant Lives. Certainly, I know that you value life. I introduced Senate Bill 1997, the Stop Gaps Act, which would require the Office of Refugee Resettlement, OOR, and HHS to work with states with placing children with sponsors, because one of the things that we found was that they were not even telling our Department of Children and Families when they were bringing these kids in and dumping them off into these situations. They were clandestine flights in the middle of the night. They wouldn't give us information. Even we tried to subpoena them for information. They refused. They wouldn't let their people talk to us. I mean, think about that. Think about that. It was almost as though they were hiding what they were trying to do. And so I want to make sure not only do we address the fact that they lost track of tens of thousands of children that were placed in dangerous situation, I hope we can figure out a way to make sure this never happens again. And if it does start happening, that there's someone that's watching for that and can make sure that we're shoring up any safeguards that we have. A former HHS official said that they looked into this, and that person said they not only verified but corroborated what was going on in Florida, and they found even more evidence of fraud with placement and sponsorships of unaccompanied minor children, and they never did anything about it, even after they had the information. So it's my hope that we get someone in there that understands how important it is for oversight, and regardless of who's in the White House, will hold, if a president does something like that again and causes harm to our children, that someone will step in and end it, and it doesn't take a state AG to be fighting a battle from one of our states. And so, Mr. Bell, I know you may not have been briefed on all of the circumstances of the case, but do I have your commitment to review this?
Thank you, Senator. Not only do you have my commitment, but I've been in all of those ORR facilities when I was a DOJ lawyer in charge of the trafficking program. I've interviewed 250 trafficking victims. I think somebody made a decision somewhere, and that decision let that child go to the wrong place. So I believe what an AG would do is find out who was in charge of that person, how that decision was made, and take the types of steps so this never happens again.
And I have your commitment to review that process and make sure that you are holding the agency accountable to its responsibilities under the law.
Yes, you do.
Thank you so much.
Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bell, in your opening statement that you provided for the record, you pledged, and I'll quote, to support the initiatives of President Trump and Secretary Kennedy, end of quote. And then you go on to say you're going to support, quote, their courageous and innovative change of direction for the improved health care of all Americans, end of quote. It's unusual to see those kinds of quotes from an IG who is supposed to be a watchdog, supposed to hold folks accountable. Traditionally, we don't see opening statements for an IG that is saying, I'm excited to be a cheerleader for the administration. I'm going to be there cheering them all every step of the way. That's not the job of an IG. I think you know that. The idea is to hold administrations accountable. Just as you were asked by the Secretary Moody to hold administrations accountable, you have to hold them accountable, not be a cheerleader. What did you mean by those statements? Tell me that you will be an actual watchdog, which is the job of the IG.
Thank you for the question, Senator, and thank you for the opportunity to explain what I mean by initiatives. I think the administration has several initiatives that any Congress would get behind, which is improving the delivery of health care, improving the compliance with federal statutes to make Medicare, Medicaid viable for the future by making sure the recipients are the intended recipients by Congress, to make sure that agencies don't go astray looking at potato chips and Elvis Presley. And I think those initiatives are the good government, good delivery, waste, fraud, and abuse initiatives that both the Secretary and the President have announced. And I also think the structure of the IG statute calls for cooperation and collaboration with the agency head, calls for being a student of Congress and congressional intent, and it also allows the IG to initiate investigations or management reviews on his or her own initiative. Those are the three places, the three buckets that IG initiatives can fall into. Certainly many of those initiatives come from the administration, and I hope to be as helpful as I can in rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse.
Well, I think we all agree those are good initiatives. Those are good initiatives for all of us to be focused on. But the job of the IG is to say, you know, this initiative is not doing what it's intended to do. And sometimes that means calling out things that may be not flattering to an administration. But that's the job of an IG. You talk about one of the powers under the Act is that you can initiate investigations, which is really critical, that you see something that doesn't seem right, your team sees something that isn't right, you begin the investigations. A president, regardless of the party, president may not be happy with that initiative because it could be embarrassing or show a major flaw in what they're trying to do. And then a president's going to call up an IG and say, hey, stop this investigation. Even though you have the power, in fact, the expectation that you will be the one initiating it. President Trump calls you and says, stop it. Will you tell him no? The law pretty clearly shows that I can initiate this investigation, and I believe that it's something that the taxpayers of the United States need to know what's going on. Would you say no to President Trump?
First of all, Senator, I don't have any experience in my time in the previous administration, nor do I know anyone who served in that administration or this one who's been asked by the president to do anything unethical or illegal, so I don't believe he would do that. Secondly, as you and I discussed yesterday in your office, I think an IG is supposed to call, in the words of Senator Wyden, call balls and strikes without secretly wearing a jersey for the pitcher or the batter. I like that characterization, and that's what I would do if confirmed.
Mr. Walk, as a senior advisor to the USDA, you have been intimately involved in agency operations. As Inspector General, you would be likely tasked with conducting oversight of these very issues. But given your clearly partisan work, I don't believe we can trust that you're going to be able to do that in a free, nonpartisan way. So will you recuse yourself from any matters on which you personally worked on at the USDA? That would give us more trust if you would commit right now to recuse yourself from anything that you worked on at USDA.
Senator, I appreciate the question. Recusals are very fact-specific. What I will commit to doing is to follow all federal laws applicable to federal employees, all regulations. I'll also look to applicable guidance, such as from OGE, as well as professional standards, including for accounting independence, as well as for the legal profession. I also intend to consult with our IG counsel. We also have a group, the Office of Compliance and Integrity, whose job is to make sure that our products are done in a way that meets professional standards, and I'll also work with them as well to make sure there's integrity in our work.
Let's hope that's the case. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you both for your willingness to serve. I thought we'd take a moment and let you introduce your family if you'd like. Mr. Walk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm grateful to be joined here by my wife, Ruth, my 4 daughters, Joanna, Phoebe, Hannah, and Grace.
Wonderful. Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, I'm joined by my wife, Mariam Bell, a beacon of good advice, kindness, and patience. We've both worked here in Washington since 1982, and she's with me here today.
And that's why you've been married so long, because you appreciate that advice, right?
That's correct.
There have been accusations made that you may be partisans, or that you may be people that are just diabolically going to do Republican things and sort out, search after Democrats. I'd like to ask you both individually, will you look at waste and fraud and at the parameters of your job and administer it independent of whether the targets might be Republican or Democrat appointees?
Senator, I will.
Yes, sir, I will.
Is there anything else that either of you would like to mention about your jobs that we haven't gotten to that you'd like to bring forward to the committee? One of the programs that I think will be under Mr. Walk's purview is the SNAP program. The GAO found that 12% of the payments from the SNAP program, about $10 billion, were improper. Do you have any ideas, Mr. Walk, about how we'd go about, or how an Inspector General would go about looking at fraud in the SNAP program?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that question. As Ranking Member Peters mentioned, I did serve for 4 months as Acting Deputy Undersecretary of FNCS. And SNAP fraud was one of the issues that I was very much interested in. I believe we should make sure that we are continuing to look at internal controls to be sure that the actions that are being taken are appropriate for the types of fraud that's happening today, because we see it at all levels, from the application to the retail stores, as well as outside folks who might be skimming. That's been a real problem. We've had a lot stolen through skimming from international gangs. And so I think we want to make sure that we have the internal controls in place, that we're doing more in terms of our management evaluations to be sure the states are following the guidance. There's also, I think, room for improvements in terms of technology. I'm sure you all know that right now SNAP is still on an EBT card for the most case, which is essentially a magnetic strip. So it's well behind other payment systems that would have a chip. So it's low-hanging fruit, and that does make it easier and more enticing for folks to try to skim from that. And I think we do want to look at technology and how we can improve technology and how we can use technology to identify fraud and identify the patterns so that we can go after it. And I'm happy to say we have an Office of Analytics and Innovation at the OIG that has been doing some good work in that area, and I'd love to explore if we can do even more. And finally, I think it's important to increase the consequences for fraud. I think we can do more in terms of pursuing federal criminal prosecutions and making sure that we're building the cases for the Department of Justice to go after those who commit fraud with taxpayer dollars.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to the committee. Welcome to your families, and thank you for your willing to serve our country. As Inspectors General of Agriculture and Health and Human Services, you play a critical role in ensuring the integrity and effectiveness of our government. Mr. Walk, we were talking, or you were talking to the chairman about the SNAP program. And we understand, or we've heard, that the Secretary of Agriculture has said that there has to be reapplication on the part of all current SNAP recipients now. Is that your understanding?
Senator, I have only read that in the news in the same way. I have not had any conversations with the Secretary or...
But you're a senior advisor to her,
That's
correct?
right.
And you haven't heard anything about it?
I generally would say I know what has been reported, and I understand that to be accurate.
There is no legal requirement that all of the current SNAP beneficiaries reapply as though they hadn't been receiving SNAP benefits, is there?
Senator, my understanding is that there's a requirement for recertification, but in terms of taking folks off unless they reapply, I don't know that there's a requirement for that.
There is none, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And the recertification is different from the application process, correct?
It is.
Recertification is done periodically every 6 months, depending on what the state decides is appropriate.
Yes.
Will you commit that you will make sure that all of the 42 million current SNAP recipients and beneficiaries receive these benefits if they are entitled to do so under current law, and that the approval process is done expeditiously and timely so that they get those benefits as they need them to put food on the table?
Senator, thank you for the question. And as I said, I did spend 4 months at FNCS, and one of the initiatives I took on in that short time was to send to the governors a letter that we expected timeliness in terms of the 30-day, 7-day period of completing the approval process for the applications. So that is an important issue to me, even on that side. Of course, as an IG, my role would not be to be in the policy role, but as IG, I would practice.
If there are delays, it would be your responsibility to assure that the approvals are done in a timely and important way, because people depend on the SNAP benefits literally to feed their children, correct?
Senator, I agree that the IG should continue to practice effective oversight over the SNAP application process.
And if I come to you as a member of the Senate and I say, the information available to me is that there are delays and bureaucratic hangups, you would look into it, correct?
Senator, that's correct. The IG Act says I need to keep Congress fully and currently informed.
Well, I'm going to hold you to that commitment. Let me ask you about foodborne illness. There was an incident involving boar's head contamination with listeria that caused 60 people to be hospitalized and 10 tragically to lose their lives. Those deaths never should have happened. At the time, I asked the then Inspector General, Phyllis Fong, to investigate the agency's handling of repeated sanitary violations that were found at boar's head plants. As far as I know, the investigation is still ongoing. Can you confirm that fact?
Senator, I did not know, but I can take a look at that and get back to your staff.
If you could, I'd appreciate it. If it is ongoing, will you commit to ensure that the Office of Inspector General will continue to independently investigate this incident and hold Boar's Head accountable for its role in the outbreak?
Yes, Senator.
Let me ask you, Mr. Bell, what assurance can you give us on this committee that you will be independent? I know that you've been asked about this issue before, that you will be independent of the leadership of the Department of Health and Human Services in light of your statements and your political involvement on some of the issues that come before the department.
Senator, thank you for that question. Senator, in graduate school, I read Aristotle's Rhetoric, and I know the difference between political rhetoric and the type of evidence that a federal prosecutor accumulates for litigation. All of my work product that is rhetorical or advocacy-oriented has been in political campaigns. All of my work product, either in congressional oversight or while at DOJ, has followed prosecutorial standards of high quality of evidence, corroborated evidence, documented evidence. So my record speaks for itself. Just because a product offended some interest of some group does not mean it didn't follow the highest standards of investigation. So I don't believe on the investigative side I have a single partisan product on my record.
Do you have views on the effectiveness of
Time
that?
has expired. Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to the nominees. Thank you for being here. Mr. Walk, let me just start with you. Give us a sense, if you would, give me a sense of your priorities. If confirmed, what do you think are the major efforts, lines of effort that you would pursue? Just give me a sense of what you think the lay of the land is.
Senator, thank you. So the top, I would say, 3 priorities would be public health and safety, integrity of our programs, and also the national security programs.
On the national security programs, what do you have in mind in particular?
Well, Senator, you may know that the Secretary has released a farm security plan that highlights kind of the linkage between Homeland Security and agriculture. We've seen, for example, foreign investments in the United States related to agriculture, both in foreign purchases as well as companies where we're getting data that seems shipped to exported to foreign adversaries, and I think we need to, as we take actions on those kinds of things for the IG, to make sure that it's done in an appropriate way. Other issues that I think deserves a look is research security. I'm sure, as you may know, in the last 6 months, there's been at least 2 breaches at the University of Michigan involving biological materials that have a link to agriculture. One is fusarium, which the FBI has characterized as an agro-terrorism weapon, and the other is a ringworm, which can cause pretty serious diseases to livestock. And both were at the hands of foreign adversaries, I'll just say Chinese nationals. And there seems to be a pattern there, and in other schools as well, where we need to be looking closer at research security, particularly when it comes from USDA. Is that money staying within the United States, or is it somehow supporting foreign adversaries? There's also, I think, an interest in terms of making sure that we increase our independence so that we're not dependent on foreign nations for key agricultural inputs such as fertilizer. And I would view all of that within kind of the national security rubric.
Very good. Mr. Bell, let me just switch to you if I could. I want to talk to you for just a second about rural hospitals, particularly cybersecurity as it relates to rural hospitals. About 40% of the hospitals in my state are rural. Frequently, these hospitals do not have the budget to stand up a cybersecurity effort, and as a consequence, they are frequently the targets of cybersecurity attacks. That's one of the reasons that Senator Hassan and I have introduced a bill called the Rural Hospital Cybersecurity Enhancement Act, which would direct HHS to create a comprehensive workforce strategy to train and develop cybersecurity personnel and professionals to help rural hospitals in particular. Now, I ask you this because if this legislation were to pass, the Office of Inspector General would be tasked with auditing how HHS develops and rolls out the cybersecurity strategy, including verifying that the training goes to the neediest hospitals, holding grantees accountable for improvements in defenses. If you are confirmed, can you commit to me that you would prioritize oversight of legislation like the Rural Hospital Cybersecurity Enhancement as part of HHS's broader rural hospital or rural health efforts?
Senator Hawley, thank you for the question. I concur that's a serious problem. Having spent 4 years at the National Counterterrorism Center, I'm aware of the dangers of cyber security, and I will commit to sit down with you and figure out how to implement that if confirmed and if passed. But I believe that would be a top priority even if the legislation doesn't pass.
Very good. And give me a sense of, in just our few remaining seconds here, of what you see as the other top priorities and lines of effort should you be confirmed.
I think 80% of the IG staff is dedicated to Medicare, Medicaid fraud. There's a lot of modernization that needs to take place. One of the first things I would look at is what type of payment tracker software what type of payment tracker software is the office using in order to look across databases to find fraud. And I will bring to bear my background at the Department of Justice in stopping criminal conduct. It's not important to just to rack up more cases or more money, but to change behavior. Behavior of people doing the fraud needs to be changed. So I would design advice and initiatives to change the behavior of people committing fraud so they don't decide not to do so.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you to the nominees for your time today and your commitment to work with the committee. The nominees have filed responses to biographical and financial questionnaires and had their financial statements reviewed by the Office of Government Ethics. Without objection, this information will be made part of the hearing record with the exception of the nominees' financial data, which are on file with the committee. Due to the quick turnaround between this hearing and the markup tomorrow, the hearing record will remain open until 5 p.m. today, November 19th. The hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.